Hey everybody, this is Joey. Hopefully you didn't see any of the shenanigans that just went on. Hopefully I edited all that out. um, so today I want to talk some about personal finance, right? So I just did a Twitch stream in which I had 0 viewers, and I got off on a tangent talking about personal finance. And I thought, well, I'll put that on YouTube and elucidate it a little bit more. So, and I'll try not to like fumble with stuff and make noises on the video. But you can tell I've been Twitch streaming. This is very casual, right? So, but one thing I think that people in America don't really understand is personal finance. And it's very obvious, right? With the number of people who are in debt, the number of people that live paycheck to paycheck. And I got to be honest, I was one of those people for a very long time. So only until the past couple of years have I been not paycheck to paycheck. So I feel you. It's tough. And I've had some jobs where I didn't make a lot of money. And it's rough. So I get it. I understand. So there's kind of 2 audiences that I'm looking at for this video. And the first audience is people who don't know anything about personal finance. I would like to try to explain things in a way that, maybe makes things a little bit easier for them to understand. And a lot of people in America are just ignorant of personal finance, and not in a bad way. Like a lot of people look at the word ignorant as saying something negative about somebody, but it just means that you don't know anything about it. You either haven't been exposed or you just never bothered to learn, or whatever. The reason is you just don't know anything about it. And so I think a lot of people are just ignorant of personal finance. And the second audience are people who are aware of personal finance and how it affects their life, but they don't understand how it affects other people's lives, right? So when you have these arguments about things like minimum wage and time off for illness, healthcare expenses, things like that, they don't understand the position that other people are in, because they haven't been in that position, or they haven't been in that position in a long time, and things are very different now. So okay, so let's start talking about personal finance. And I get a lot of these ideas from Dave Ramsey. You can look him up on the internet. And I don't agree with everything Dave says, especially about social issues and about political issues. I think he's pretty tone deaf and blind to how most people live in the United States these days, and what's most helpful to them. But his financial advice I've found to be pretty solid. So it's not 100% solid, but nobody's 100, nobody's perfect, right? So let's look at this, right? So you got to think about when you're dealing with personal finance. Personal finance is really, it's important. That's the other thing, is a lot of people don't understand that personal finance is important in America, right? So in other places, personal finance is not really a concern, but personal finance is important in America. So the first thing you need to understand is that even though personal finance is important, that it's still based off the old necessities, right? The first necessity is water, right? And I should have took these monetary values out of here, but I didn't. And we'll clean this up a little bit. Let's clean it up a little bit. All right. Okay. The first necessity is water. You have to have water to live. You can't go more than 24 hours without water, without severe consequences. So water is important. Clean water is important. So you have to pay for water. Somehow you have to pay for water, right? And you need about 2 gallons of it a day to live, to live. So water, right? Do you need 2 gallons? Maybe it's 1 gallon. I don't know. They say drink 8-ounce glasses. So it's 1 gallon. So you need a gallon a day, right? At least. Depending on how much you're sweating, if you have diarrhea, things like that, So let's say gallon and a half a day, right? Just to survive, right? Food. You need food. You can't do without food. All right. So food, water, food, shelter, clothing, right? These are the base necessities. Shelter. What is shelter? Shelter could be the back of your truck, Could be the back seat of your car, right? Clothing. You need clothing, which is another form of shelter, really. Like, protects you from the elements. In the summer, it keeps you from getting a sunburn. In the winter, it keeps you from freezing to death. Transportation. Transportation in America is very important. And if you live in a city, you might could get away with no transportation costs, depending on the city. It had to be a very large city, like Chicago, New York. Those are the only two, really. Maybe someplace like Seattle. Even then, I don't know. So transportation is, you got to pay for it, right? Electricity. You need electricity. Do you need electricity? No, you don't need electricity, right? But it's helpful, right? Communication, right? You need some way to talk to people. And for some way for people to talk to you. So you need a phone, something like that. These are kind of the very basic necessities for living in America. These are, you can't live with that. These are required, right? These are semi-required. Okay, let's talk about water. So water, right? Water, this is assuming that you already have this, right? That you would pay $30 a month for water. This $30 a month would also buy you a gallon of water Like you can go into Kroger for $1 and buy a gallon of jug of drinking water. So, oops, not what we're talking about right now. So $30 for water. Food. I put $200 here, you know. And this is all based off of one person taking care of only themselves. So if you got kids, you know, if you're a husband, wife, you know, multi-generational family, there's all kinds of scenarios, right? You're taking care of grandma, you know, you're taking care of your life partner. You got 10 kids. You know, this is assuming one person, right? One person. So food, $200, right? That's probably a little high. If you're talking about bare necessities, right? So to get moderately nutritious meals where you won't die and you won't be malnourished, this is about $50 a week. Can you live on less than that? Probably. You could probably get that. You could get that down a little bit. But we're gonna call this a baseline. Okay. Shelter is where you live, and it's gonna be variable. You know, depending on the part of the country you live in. But I'm going to kind of reference things as if we're in Nashville, Tennessee, because that's where I currently live, Nashville. I live in Nashville-ish. So I live in the Metro Davidson County area. Okay. So to get a one bedroom, maybe a studio type apartment, we're looking at about $800 a month. That's pretty steep. But again, we're just going off the assumption that you're one person taking care of one person. You don't have any roommates or anything like that. No. Clothing. Let's say $20 a month. And when I say clothing, I'm not talking about Ralph Lauren. I'm not talking about Prada. I'm not talking about Nike. I'm not talking about Adidas. I'm not talking about even, you know, Walmart stuff, really. Like, this is Goodwill. You're shopping at Goodwill for your clothes. Transportation. Super important in the United States. Super important. Transportation. $500 a month. $500 a month. What is this $500 paying for? It's paying for your car payment, right? It's paying for your fuel, and it's paying for auto insurance. And this is not paying for maintenance. This is not car maintenance. This is just the bare necessities, right? Electricity, $100 a month. Your electricity bill will vary throughout the year. I think mine, I haven't really done the numbers, but I think it would probably average out to about this. Can you get this down? Yeah. In the summer, you can sweat. In the winter, you could put on $20 worth of t-shirts and jackets and stuff. Communication. This assumes that you already have a cell phone, right? Already assumes you already have a cell phone. $20 a month minimum to run a cell phone. Okay. So this list is missing a few things, right? It's missing some things. But this is it. This is what you need in Nashville to live your life. Okay? So let's total it up. 30 plus 200 plus 800 plus 20 plus 500 plus 100 plus 20. You need $1,600 a month to afford this stuff, right? So that's total. Oops. $1,600 a month, right? Ooh, $1,670 even. Oops. $1,670, right? Okay. Now, 1,670 times 12. You gotta live for a whole year, right? You want to do a yearly budget? $20,000 to live in Nashville with just this. You need $20,000 on, purely on your own. Okay. Now, so let's say this is what you need. What would we say? 20. You need that. Okay. Now, what does that translate into as far as an hourly wage goes? Right. So this is what you have to take home. This number here is what you have to take home. This number is what you have to take home. So you're going to have taxes that you got to pay on that, right? Taxes. And that there's stuff missing from this list. Just going to keep saying that. There's stuff missing from the list. All right. So let's say you pay 15% in taxes. And when you're in the $20,000 tax bracket, it's probably a little high. But let's just assume 15%. So now $23,000. Okay. Now realistically, you're not going to pay $3,000 in taxes on $20,000, right? Like, you're just not, because you got your standard deductible and all that. So this is a little high, and the tax rates are not right. You're probably going to pay closer to probably about $1,000 in taxes. Okay, but just bear with me here. Let's assume the worst, that you get totally screwed on your taxes. So this is what you need to take home, or this is what you need to make, and you make this, you take home that, right? Okay, so divided by 52. There's 52 weeks in the year. So let's assume you get paid every week. A lot of people get paid most people get paid every 2 weeks. Then you would just divide by 26. There's 52 weeks in a year. 52 divided by 2, 26. Okay. So this is what you make every week. Weekly. $440. Let's make it that number, right? Okay. So now this is what you got to make every week. Okay. That gets you to this, which gets you to this, which gets you this stuff, right? Okay. So Um, divide that. Oops. Divide by 40. Typical work week, 40 hours. This is your hourly wage, right? So you're $11.08 an hour. Now, $11.08 an hour get you that. That's what it gets you. Okay. Minimum wage in the United States, in Tennessee anyway, is $7.25 an hour. So in Tennessee, you're short, in Nashville anyway, you're short $3.82 an hour, 83 cents an hour. In being able to cover these costs. Okay. Now, this is the part of the conversation where I'm talking to the wealthier people, the pull yourself up by your bootstraps people. Minimum wage is $7.25 an hour, and it gets you this, right? Can you imagine living only with this right here? Okay. I'm sorry. $11.08 an hour gets you this, right? $7.25 doesn't get you this. What does $7.25 get you? Where on this list would you land? So now I'm talking to the first audience, the people who are ignorant of personal finance. You may not recognize it, but this is a prioritized list. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is the order in which you're going to pay for things when you get money during the month. Okay. Now we'll do, okay, 7.25 times 40. $290, right? Per week, right? Times 52 weeks in a year. $15,000, okay? So it's a long way away. That's about $8,000 away, right? So if this is what you're going to make per year. You divide that by 12 because your expenses are typically monthly expenses. And so the math, if you do 4 weeks per month, then you only have 48 months, and then your math's going to be a little bit skewed. So that's why we're doing this kind of back and forth. So minimum wage, this is what you make, right? Per year. You're probably not going to pay any taxes. In fact, we're just going to let that go. We're going to say, okay, you're not paying any taxes. Actually, you'll pay a little bit of tax. Let's say you pay about roughly 5%. So that's times 0.95. Okay. So let's say $11.90 is what you make per month on minimum wage. Now, where does that get you in this list here? Where in this list here, where are you at on $11.90? Well, $30 plus $200 plus $800 All right. We're almost there. Plus 20. Now we have $140 left. Right? Did you see what I did there? I added up 30, 200, 800, 20. I still hadn't got to 1190 yet, but I knew that I was more than $500 away. Or that I was less than $500 away from 1190. So I subtracted and I got 140. So now you skip transportation and you pay for electricity and communication, right? So if you're making minimum wage, you can't afford transportation. You can only afford this stuff, right? So now, how do you get to work? How do you get to work? You walk. Can you walk? Can you walk to your job? If you're on minimum wage, then you have to work within walking distance in Nashville. So let's hope you live somewhere where there's a minimum wage job within walking distance. Okay? This part is for the people that have good personal finance, but they maybe have forgotten other people. This right here, to me personally, this is closer to minimum wage. This is what minimum wage should be. Closer to. Really, it should be higher than that. And let me tell you why. This is my budget, right? I don't have any values in here. I don't have any dollar values. And I'm not going to reveal the dollar values of what I pay for everything. But let's look at it because I've included some things that aren't in this list here, right? Water, food, shelter, clothing, electricity, communication, transportation. Okay. Now, water and food are right here. Water is included in my rent. So, it's included, right? So, I pay for that. And here's my food. All right, those are in the list. Shelter, again, rent, okay. Clothing. You don't really see that in this list, right? I got plenty of clothes. And I have this category, right? Okay. So clothing's taken care of. Clothing's not a priority for me either. But I have clothing. I'm good, right? All right. Electricity. Here it is in the list. So let's move these things here. We've got that. We've got electricity. We've got rent. We've got food and water. All of this stuff taken care of, right? We'll move it down here to the bottom of the list. Okay. Now here's some other stuff, right? Communication. Phone. Got that. That's on my list. Didn't forget that. So we've taken care of everything that all of this stuff's accounted for here. It's all accounted for. In my budget, right? I still got this list of stuff though. I got this list of stuff. We're getting close to the end here. Transportation, right? Auto insurance and auto savings. Got that, right? Got that, right? Okay. So and fuel. We gotta have fuel. Got that. But that's counted in this number over here. Transportation. This is insurance, fuel, and the cost of the vehicle. Right? Okay, so now we go up the stack. Let's close it up. All right. So now here's the things that we left off. Here's the things that we left off this list over here. We've accounted for all this stuff over here. And here's the stuff we left off. Okay? That's giving, right? You want to be generous. You want to be nice. You want to give. So that's some giving. More giving. More giving. This is just incidental giving. More giving, right? That's not a necessity. I don't have to give money away. I don't have to save, for other people. I don't have to. It's not a necessity. So I'm taking it off the list. We don't need it. Okay. Restaurants. You don't need to eat at restaurants. It's not a necessity, right? So that goes away. Internet. Again, not a necessity, right? You already have a phone that probably has internet on it. Although, we're assuming here that you have a phone that's internet capable. It may not be internet capable. You don't need it. You don't need it. It's not a necessity, right? But this is assuming that you can acquire a phone somehow, or you already have a phone. Most people already have a phone. But if you don't, you got to pay for it somehow, or you got to get one free, which is possible. Certainly possible. You just have to work for it. You got to reach out, find somebody that's willing to give you a phone. Okay? Blow money. Not on this list. Right? Not on this list. You can't. It's not necessary. You don't need money to blow on stuff. Right? Phone savings. Eventually your phone will shit the bed. Eventually your phone will shit the bed. And you're going to have to replace it. Unfortunately, not on this list. So let's say if the average phone lasts about 2 years nowadays, you can get a pretty cheap phone. Let's say $10 a month. Okay. Home savings. You're not saving for a home. It's not necessary. Okay. And we took care of it. Now, internet. If you need it for your job, then you need it. Right? But we don't need it. We don't need it. It's not a necessity, right? Plus you already have a phone with internet on it, right? Maybe. But even if you don't, even if your phone doesn't have internet, you don't need the internet. You don't need it. It's very convenient, but you don't need it. You can go to the library. Well, you can't right now because of COVID. But it's not a necessity. It's not essential, right? So, what are we left with? Medical expenses. Now, if you're working a job making $11 an hour, the likelihood that they offer insurance, pretty slim. Pretty slim. So you're going to have to pay for it or go without, right? Medical. This is, how do you put a number to this? It's case by case, person by person. My medical expenses, pretty low. I'm still fairly young. I don't have any major health issues other than I'm overweight. All of my medical expenses are purely discretionary. So hard to put a number to this for me anyway. But let's try. Let's try to put a number to it. Let's say that you need to go to the doctor once a month. Once every 2 months. So you got potentially a copay in there if you can get on some kind of Obamacare plan, something like that. But then you're assuming that you're on Obamacare plan, which is going to cost you money. So $250 maybe? A lot of money. Okay. And again, your medical expenses personally could be $1,000 a month, $2,000, $3,000, $5,000, $6,000, $10,000 a month, depending on what your situation is. You can have cancer. You could be on chemo. So, there you go. This number, $800 for shelter. That's a lot of money. You need a roommate, right? The other thing that's not on this list here, transportation. It looks like it's not on this, but it is on this list, right? So once you've paid off your car, you can't not pay a car payment. You have to always pay a car payment. So let's say you buy a $1,000 car and your car payment's $250 or $200 a month. In 5 months, your car's paid off. And you're like, I'm good. I got an extra $200 to work with. No, you're not. Because you're going to need another car. If it's a $1,000 car, you're going to need another car really quick. So you still got to pay. You still got to pay $200 a month to yourself for a car, right? So this is a little bit more realistic list. Okay, so how does that affect all these numbers down here? Well, obviously all this goes up, right? Now you're probably going to be making more like $13 an hour just to do this stuff up here, right? Right. But the key here to this list is this is a prioritized list. You see that? This program, this text editor here just happens to have line numbers, which is very convenient because it puts things in order. And this prioritized list is just me throwing out some priorities. For you, medical might be right here. Medical. Might be the third priority. Maybe you're diabetic and you have to have some kind of medicine. You got to have insulin or something. And you can't not have insulin. You can't not go to the doctor and get that prescription. So, just to live, right? So medical's up here for you. So this is how you do a budget. This is how you do a budget. A budget is just a prioritized list. That's all it is. It's a prioritized list of everything that goes in and everything that comes out. All right? Per month. You need to do it monthly. And You need to do it not just monthly. You need to have a meeting with yourself if you're by yourself or with your partner. If you have a partner. If you have kids, bring them around. Show them where the money's coming from, where it's going. Teach them. Right? There's no reason why they don't need to know this. They need to know. They need to know. You're like, well, I don't want to tell my kids because there's not enough money for the whole month. Or what are those kids going to do when they're older and there's not enough money at the end of the month? What kind of decisions are they going to make? You got to let your kids know this stuff. Right? It's not going to hurt them. They're going to learn lessons. You got to explain to them what's going on. You got to say, here's the situation. Mommy or daddy, or mommy and daddy, we make $1,000 a month. We have $1,200 worth of expenses. So we got to cut corners here or there. You know, kids will work with you. If they understand, you got to, and they will understand if you explain it to them, right? So don't be afraid to show your kids. I don't have any kids. I'm just going off how I was raised. My mom, she didn't show me the details of our money, but she discussed it with me. You don't have to show them a spreadsheet and be like, here's my spreadsheet with all my numbers on it. Because they're probably not going to get much out of that. But you can't explain like what's going on. And you don't need to do a spreadsheet, right? Are spreadsheets intimidating? Is math intimidating to you? This is really simple math, right? You can get somebody to help you with it if you don't have the math skills. But it's pretty simple stuff. It's just adding up all your expenses, adding up your income, and then figuring out where you're at, right? How do you figure out where you're at? Well, you say, I make this much and I'm spending this much. You subtract the two numbers. And you'll either be over or under. You want to take this number here. Let's call it the amount you make. The amount you mail. Amount you make. Let's do it. Let's do it together, right? 1670. Now, you want to subtract your expenses from it. $30, $200, $250, $800, $20, $100, $20, $500. I didn't do this right. Sorry. Hitting the wrong button. 1670 minus 30 minus 200 minus 250 minus 800 minus 20 minus 1,000 100 minus 20 minus 500 minus 10. We're short $260. Whoops. Right? We're short money here. If you take the amount of money you make and subtract off your expenses, then you're short $260. Okay? So what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Somewhere in here, you're short $260. You got to find $260 somewhere in here. It's not here. It's not here. That looks like $260. That looks really close to $260. But you're diabetic. and you need your insulin. So it's not here. You need a place to live. It's not there, right? You just keep going down the list until you find a place where you can shave off some money. My car's paid for. I can't save anything for a new car. It's a hard choice. It's a hard choice because you know you're going to need a new car. But maybe this is where you save $260, you know? Maybe turn the heat off. Maybe turn the air conditioning off. You can save $50, $60, something like that. You know? This is budgeting. It's really simple. It's really super simple. Don't let it intimidate you. It's not hard. And so for audience 2, these are the type of choices that audience 1 has to make, right? Right? Here's what they need to live on. Here's how much money they make. Where do you cut? Where do you cut? All of these are essential. Where do you cut? These are the types of decisions that people have to make every day. You know, audience 1, they're already making these decisions, whether they know it or not. You know, whether they do it in a reasoned and deliberate way, or whether they're just flying by the seat of their pants. They're making this decision every day, right? Where do I cut to get to this number? So maybe they cut here. Maybe you're like, okay, well, I got to take on a roommate. So now that goes down. Oops. So let's look at that. Now, you're $140 ahead. What are you going to do with this $140? If you're an audience 1, where you're just learning about budgeting, where you're just learning about personal finance, you don't go spend that money without a plan. Now, maybe your plan is shitty. Maybe your plan is to spend that at the bar. You know, maybe you spend it on hookers and cocaine. I don't know what you spend it on, but you need to have a plan for that money. Okay? So let's say this is your situation. Now you're in a better situation. You're not losing money every month. You're making money every month. You're coming out ahead every month, right? It's not by a lot. It's $140. But that's not chopped liver either. That's a good chunk of money. So what do you do with that? So now you need something else here. You need you're already saving for your next car. You're saving for your next phone. All right. You got your medical expenses taken care of. Right? What do you spend that money on? Doesn't matter. It could be retirement. You could say, I'm just going to throw it all at retirement, $140. You could say, you could spend it on an emergency fund. right? You could spend it on emergency fund and cake, right? You could buy $40 worth of cake every month because you save $400 up here. What I'm doing here is I'm spending every dollar on paper before the month begins. This is a Dave Ramsey principle. This is the key to everything. It's deliberate action. Deliberate action. The key to everything with personal finance is deliberate action. Is doing everything on purpose. Doing it on purpose. I'm spending $40 on cake every month on purpose. So now you know. Now you know where your money's coming from, where it's going. $40 of it's going to cake. It's down here at priority 11. So that if you have to miss a day of work, maybe, you don't get your cake that month. This right here is key. The emergency fund. Key. Super important. Super important. When you've paid for this and this and this and this and this and this and this, and maybe that, this is important, right? Emergency fund. What's an emergency fund? It's a savings account. It's just a savings account with money in it for emergencies. What's an emergency? More cake? Is cake an emergency? No. Trip to the emergency room? That's an emergency. My car blew up? That's an emergency, right? My rent went up by $50 a month. That's not an emergency. That's a temporary emergency, right? But you can't sustain that. So now your rent went up by $50 a month. So this goes down, right? But you can't pay money out of your emergency fund because then your emergency fund would be gone, right? So that's not permanent. What's an emergency? Your roommate moved out. Now your rent goes back up, right, to $800. And this stuff goes away. And you're kind of in dire straits. Like, some of this is going to have to go away too. But that could be an emergency. Your roommate moved out, didn't pay the rent. So you take some money out of your emergency fund that you were saving up when you were good, ahead on times, and you pay the rent that month. And then you go find another renter immediately. You find another roommate immediately. You see what we're doing here? Government could learn from this. Government doesn't do this. They don't do this. They just spend money. If they don't have any money, they print money. But we can't do that. We can't print money. People, we can't print money. We have to do this. This is how I got out of debt. I make decent money now. I make really decent money. I'm not going to tell you how much money I make, but I make decent money. But there's been times when I don't make decent money. Or I make less than $10 an hour. Or I make less than $5 an hour. If you're old enough to remember that. Remember those times? Making less than $5 an hour? course, my rent wasn't $800 back then either. You know, it was like $300. It's actually less than that, you know. So this is how you budget. This is how you budget. This is how you do personal finance. It's really simple. It's really simple. Super simple. Amazingly simple. And all of this is just very basic math that you can do with a basic calculator. You don't have to be a guru in math to do budgeting, to do personal finance. What is personal finance? Personal finance is not picking stocks, moving money around different accounts. It can be. But this is personal finance. This is like, how much money do I make? How much money do I spend? And keeping up with it. That's the important part. Being deliberate, keeping up with it. For audience two. What can I say? These are the expenses. These are the expenses that people are dealing with these days. This is not counting student loans. College is not $100 a semester anymore. College is not $1,000 a semester anymore. College at a state school, to go to college with in-state tuition, it's like $5,000 a semester. It's not cheap. Right? So people are taking out loans to do it. Because when you look at the want ads, they all want a college degree. They want a college degree for people to do data entry at a bank. What are you supposed to do if you don't have any money? They want you to have a college degree to be a manager at McDonald's. What are you supposed to do? You take out loans. That's what they tell you, to take out loans. I would encourage people not to take out loans to go to college. I don't know how you pay for it. Scholarships. Take one class at a time. I don't know. So it's almost not worth it. Depends on the person. Depends on what you're getting into. But this is what happens. I'm speaking to audience 2 here. The rich people. This is what happens when you don't want to pay your taxes. This is what happens when you cut education spending and spending of any type on anything that has any kind of benefit to just regular people. This is why you spend money. This is why you're supposed to spend money on regular people, on education, things like that, so they don't get in this situation, right? With this down here, see where I'm going with this? Even this. Even this here, that seems legit. Seems like it would work. Yeah, I can afford to pay that. $250 a month. I went to college. I probably have a pretty decent job. How much your interest on that? 3%, 6%, depends on the type of loan you got. How much was your total loan? How do you get to that number, $250 a month? Are you in forbearance? You paying interest only? Probably. That's an interest only payment right there. $250, interest only. So, for audience 2, this is what people are dealing with these days. Things are very different than they used to be. The cost of living is a lot more, and the wages have been stagnant. The wages that you were making 20 years ago, relative to the cost of living, were much greater than they are now. So, for audience 2, you got to understand that. And you got to pay your taxes. You got to be willing to pay your taxes. We're going to have to pay more taxes to get us out of this mess where we got people doing this shit. Right? Why is that important? Why is paying taxes important? Because we don't need this. People don't need this shit in their lives. Medical, student loan. If it wasn't for the medical and the student loan, this person's in much better shape. They're in much better shape. It's still expensive. It's still expensive to live, right? They're still not covering this cost, even with all this. But it's a lot easier. It's a lot easier when you don't have medical expenses and when you don't have school expenses, right? So, pay your taxes. Be willing to pay your taxes. Be willing to help your fellow man and your fellow woman. You could easily be in this situation. You could easily find yourself in this situation. I think a lot of people have seen during COVID, right? We're in this situation. People thought they would never be in this situation. Now they're in this situation. Now they're making the tough choices. Their jobs went away. The job that you thought was so vital and important before, turns out it's not, and it could happen to any one of us at any time. There's only a few jobs that are truly essential in this economy, right? And they could go away at any time. So, your great idea, your great business that you built could go away. COVID, right? COVID could come shut you down. So, it's time for audience 2. Audience 1, we've shown them the path. We've shown them what you got to do, the math you got to do. It's simple math. It's addition and subtraction. You can do it with a calculator. And come back and watch this video 500 times until you get it. Right? And it may take you 500 times. If it takes you 500 times, it takes you 5. Some people are not good with math. It seems hard. It seems daunting. But you got to try, right? So audience 1, give it a try. Audience 2, compassion, right? Pay your taxes. Compassion and pay your taxes. This could be my new motto in life. Compassion and pay your taxes. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with that? What's wrong with helping out people? If you don't like how the government spends your money, think about how the government spends your money. What are the priorities of the government spending? Then participate in the process. Right? Vote. Talk to your local elected officials. And don't assume that just because everything is the way it is now, that has to be that way. Or that it's even that way for a good reason. Are you having trouble talking to your elected official? Maybe we don't have enough elected officials. Maybe having one elected official in Washington for every 700,000 people is not a good ratio. Maybe we need more elected officials so that more people can be represented. So, food for thought for audience 2. Audience 1, now you know how to budget. And that's step 1. That's step 1 to understanding your personal finances. I hope you don't think that was condescending in any way for people in audience 1. For audience 2, I don't care. I'll be condescending to you all day. But audience 1, I hope you don't think it was condescending. I hope you found it helpful. It's good advice, even if you don't like me, even if you don't like people like Dave Ramsey, even if you don't think I'm right. It's not a question of right and wrong. This is simple. This is just math. This is just math. This is me doing math. This is me, adding and subtracting. And that's all finance is. That's all personal finance is. So I hope you didn't find it condescending. And wasn't intended to be condescending. And this is a long video. This is like an hour-long video to talk about some really simple stuff. But it's important stuff. It's important. Because if you don't think that the world is right, if you don't think that the world is fair, if you don't think that you can ever get ahead, this gets you ahead. This gets you in a position where you can make things right. This gets you in a position where you can affect change. You get yourself right first. You take care of yourself. This is you taking care of yourself. And then you can take care of others in your own way, however you want to do it. However you want to do it. Doesn't matter. It's like I said, these don't really matter to me. Some of these do matter. These matter, right? Food, shelter, clothing. Those matter to everybody, right? The rest of it, you can prioritize it however you want. You can prioritize it however you want. And you can take issue with the clothing, even. So maybe that's not a complete necessity if you're a nudist and you live in Tahiti. But here in the more temperate climates, clothing's kind of necessary. And if you're a pasty white guy in the summertime, clothing's kind of necessary. But yeah, priorities, doing things deliberately. Eventually, if you're deliberate about what you're doing, you'll make progress. I guarantee it. Guarantee you will make progress. Unless you're extremely unlucky. And you can't help that. You can't help it. If you're unlucky, you're unlucky. But sometimes you got to make your own luck. This is making your own luck. Doing this stuff here makes your own luck. So do it. An audience too. Help them. Help them do it. Help them understand, what the priorities should be. Help them understand that cable TV is not a priority. Disney Plus is not a priority. Do what you can. All right. Peace out.